So you lost your Lynae 50-50. What now? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, I'm making this video for a very specific group of people. You have lost your Lynae 50-50, and you aren't really looking to swipe. You only have enough asteroids to pull for either Lynae now or Mornye later, and you don't know if you're going to be able to get both. You want to play it safe, and you don't really want to risk a 50-50 on Mornye if you decide to pick up Lynae. So, in your predicament, who is better to get, Lynae or Mornye? I'm going to say that it's gonna depend on account, and that is exactly what this video is for, to detail who you should go for if you're not able to get both pieces of the puzzle. We first have to ask the question, are they going to be strong without each other? It's pretty clear that once you pair them together, you're going to have a very strong team core. However, are they going to be any worse off without each other? Now, because we already have Lynae released, and we've had some time to play her, we can already evaluate that she is very, very strong on her own. And I do expect that Mornye is going to be the same, even if she would prefer to play with Lynae in the team. Essentially, here is the case. Both of them are extremely versatile, just in different slots. One is a very versatile second slot teammate, whereas the other is a very versatile third slot teammate, and both of those have their own value. I do think that Mornye is only going to be better than Shorekeeper if you have Lynae. However, a character that is even close to Shorekeeper is still a very good character. So I wouldn't really be too concerned if she's not as good as Shorekeeper, because Shorekeeper is literally the best character in the game, and being anywhere near that is already a very good thing. So I would say it depends on this. First of all, do you have characters that would benefit more from Mornye or Lynae specifically? And another thing, do you need a more versatile second slot or third slot teammate? What would benefit you more in your current predicament? And there's also the new endgame to account for. So, I'm just gonna say this. If you have Yuno, go for Lynae. Just go for Lynae. She is the definitive best in slot second slot teammate for Yuno DPS, regardless of whether you're going to have Mornye or not. She is already performing absolutely excellently with her, so I 100% recommend that if you're a Yuno main, yes, go for it, get Lynae. You don't need Lynae's signature weapon. Static Mist is going to do perfectly fine on her, and you are very much going to experience a very strong team. I don't even have Yuno's signature weapon, and I am still able to clear the middle tower 4 using Yuno DPS. This is a really good team, and if you're interested in Yuno DPS, and better yet, you may even have Yuno's signature weapon, then it is 100% worth just getting Lynae and not even thinking twice about it. If you're a Liao main, do note that Lynae is not going to make him meta. He is still not really going to be that strong overall, but if you're really dedicated to that specific character and you really want to see him do better, then Lynae is going to be a good choice for him. He's not going to make him meta, please keep that in mind, but she will be a buff to him. So if you're really interested in Liao in particular, that is another situation in which you should be getting Lynae. Same situation with Kalcharo, but to a more extreme extent, because Kalcharo hypercarry is just really not very good. And then with Mornye, I would say that because she's a fusion character, if you're a really big fan of fusion units, like Albrena, Lupa, Brant Weathering Waves, such and such, that's the situation in which you would prefer to get Mornye on her own as opposed to Lynae on her own. You could very easily slot her in as a third slot teammate in a Brant DPS team, for instance, or a Galbrena team, for instance, and she's still going to do some very good work. I would say those are the situations in which you would specifically want one more than the other. However, in a more broad sense, I would say this. We recently got a new endgame where the more characters you have, the better, and you get 2 uses of your effective third slot teammates. In which case, you're going to be able to get 2 uses of Mornye. So if you want to aim for the highest scores possible in that game mode, I would say that Mornye is going to be better for you because you're going to have more good third slots that you're able to use across more of your teams. Whereas Lynae, as flexible as she is, only has 1 use in that game mode, so keep that in mind. I would say that for the new endgame, Mornye is generally going to be just that bit more valuable. The reason why I believe this is the case is because you get 2 uses of Shorekeeper and Verena, and I believe that Mornye is going to be the same. In a more general sense, I would say think about it like this. Shorekeeper is literally the best character in the game as it currently stands. Mornye only being a bit worse than that, most likely, I would say that holds a lot of merit. But here's the thing. Do you already have your third slot teammates covered? In your Falova team, do you already have a Choyuan or a Roshia to put in the back? In your Cardathea team, do you already have an Air Rover or Chisa to put in the back? Do you already have these things sorted? if you do, that is going to decrease the value of having somebody like Mornye on your account as a standalone, because for most people that's going to be very valuable, but if you have a very specifically invested account and you have all of the best third slot teammates for your teams, perhaps you're not going to need somebody as specific as Mornye. Do you already have a Spectral Rover for your Zani? Do you already have a Lupa for your Triple Fusion team? The list goes on and on. While Mornye is going to be really good in these situations, if you already have the complete pieces to these puzzles, you're not going to need a standalone as much as you would originally. However, I would say this. The same kind of applies to Shorekeeper, and she still ends up being a really valuable pull no matter what, because she saves you from having to pull these more specific characters. But if you go ahead and you pull them anyway, I would say that means that Lynae is likely to be a better pull for you, especially going forward if you're interested in pulling for more Toon Break characters. As I would say, if you look back on Wuthering Waves' past, usually getting the second slot is more important than getting the third slot. Cardathia can work with Chisa, but she is far stronger with Shakona, for instance. Granted, that is the most extreme example because that's a negative status character, and we very much do end up with Augusta situations where you can get away with skipping their second slot teammate and just use a 4-star instead. However, generally speaking, there is usually more flexibility when it comes to the third slot as opposed to the second slot. The second slot generally is always more rigid, no matter what. Lynae essentially is able to free you from that rigidity. We don't have a second slot teammate like her yet, whereas with the third slot, we have Shorekeeper, we have Verena. Mornye isn't really paving new ground. She is 100% going to be a really valuable pull, yes, but if you have to choose between the two, I would say that Lynae is able to free you from the need of having to pull for specific second slots, and that's usually a bit more valuable than being freed from needing to pull specific third slots, because brand new third slots are rarely ever a big increase. Yes, we do end up with situations where the second slot isn't really needed to be pulled. However, we much more often run into situations where the second slot is really powerful for the main DPS that they're supporting, and the third slot can easily be skipped in favor of just using Shorekeeper instead. Lynae is something completely new, and what I mean by this isn't the fact that she released recently, but rather the fact that she's introducing something to the meta that we previously just didn't have before, a Shorekeeper for the second slot. So, for that reason, I do think that on the whole, if you already have Shorekeeper and Verena, I do think that Lynae is the more valuable character, generally speaking. I will say that if you don't have Shorekeeper, then that does make Mornye a more appealing offer, but to that I say get Shorekeeper as soon as you possibly can, and yes, in that case, getting Mornye should be your first priority because you don't have Shorekeeper. But the majority of people will be pulling for Shorekeeper at some point in their Wuthering Waves journey, and if you already have Verena and Shorekeeper, I would say generally, Lynae is going to be better for you. There are going to be some people that are going to want Mornye more under the circumstances of fusion teams, wanting more good third slot teammates for the new endgame. Or maybe they are in the opposite situation, and what I mean by this is that you have already pulled all of the really good second slot teammates for all of your characters. You don't really need a generalist second slot. Lynae does end up being best in slot for quite a few characters, so there is that. I should note that for characters like Yuno, Absolution, Phoebe, Carlotta, she is an outright buff. However, for somebody like Frolova, Lynae is very good, but you would still use Cantarella if you want the best in slot, for instance. There are still going to be cases in which while Lynae is very good there, she's not exactly going to be the prime best option that you can possibly use. So, I will say that if you've already gotten all of your second slot teammates sorted out, you're not a Yuno main, you don't really use any of the characters that she seriously buffs up, then I would say Mornye may end up being more appealing for you if you would rather use another third slot teammate, because you generally just can't go wrong with that, and I do believe that at the very least, even without Lynae, she will probably end up being better than Verena. I say probably because we still have to wait for her official release and actually test her out to see. However, I just think that it is likely that that's going to be the case. I would be surprised if it wasn't, to be honest, but even if she was just as good as Verena, Verena's still a very good character, so that wouldn't even be too much of a bad thing. So you can't really go wrong with either, but I would say that for a majority of people, what Lynae provides is just more useful, and she is generally going to be able to save you more astrites in the long run, as she is introducing something new to the meta, whereas Mornye, she is going to be better in some specific circumstances, namely fusion-based circumstances. However, for the most part, because we already have Shorekeeper, you don't really have to worry yourself about getting another shorekeeper immediately, because we do have Verena. You can still very much continue using those two, and you're still going to be clearing long into the foreseeable future. So if you lost your 50-50 to Lynae and you're wondering whether you get her or Mornye, I would say think about what I said in this video and evaluate who's going to be more valuable for your account on the whole. Don't worry if you feel like you make the wrong choice in the end. Trust me, with these two characters, you can't really make a wrong choice. They are both extremely meta, and you're gonna find use in them no matter what. However, I do think that for the most part, you should just go for Lynae. Though, once again, if Mornye would be more useful for you, consider what I said in this video and then go for her instead. Just don't put too much pressure on yourself. Hopefully this video is able to tell you who to choose between Lynae and Mornye if you lost your 50-50. This has been Juice, signing out. And I suppose you could also just go for whoever you think is more waifu. That's also a valid option.